it's not really treaty. But I must say that Irtish, well, it's expanded a little, and well, not actually a little, but I can see it from the spot. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we have a flood at spring, and the forest fires in the summer, and that's the main disasters of Russia. Like you have tornadoes and storms.
Yes, we have some difficulty with wildfires, forest fires, in the summer as well, and they come recently because we've been having a drought in a large part of the country.
We should probably ask about global warming. There's many Americans who feel that our weather is changing due to global warming. Anton, is that a theme in Russia?
Russians doesn't really care about the weather, in my opinion, as we're getting used to anything, and that's okay. Because we have awfully cold winters and boiling hot summers, especially in Siberia. And actually, it's a common opinion that Moscow guys are too soft for our climate. Yeah, it's common among the Siberians and among those who live on the north, somewhere in the Urengoy, for example, or in Norilsk, or in Vorkuta. That's it.
So I wanted to ask about news coverage, the idea of having continuous television news coverage, which we tend to find in any disaster. The last one was the bombing during the Boston Marathon.
So live, continuous coverage.
Yes.
Diana, do you watch television? Do you watch the news on television?
Yes, of course, I watch the TV. Especially, I prefer to watch the news, the world news, and the news about events which happened in our country. And but sometimes I can find all the information about events in our news on TV. So I use the internet, and in the internet I can find all the information.
Now, which news broadcast do you watch? Did you watch one single news broadcast that you try to watch every day, Diana? Show.
I watch the news broadcasting channel like Russia 24. It is the channel which broadcasting news 24 hours per day. So I can switch on the TV and choose the channel, and I can find the information which I need.
And do you have a particular show like Viesti Nedeli or something like that? Or just the channel? You watch the channel in general?
Yes, I watch a channel, but of course on Sunday evenings I watch watch the show in which all the news, all the week news are broadcasting.
And what's that show called?
Do we have sound?
Did we lose Deanna's sound?
Yeah, I think we've lost your sound.
Do you hear me?
Ah, now
There
we
we
can.
go. There we go. Okay.
Can you repeat the last question, please?
I was asking if you had a particular show you watched that summarized all of the news. Or is it just a news summary on Russia 24, right?
Yes, it is just a summary on this channel.
And are the channels different? So, you know, Russia 24 and NTV or REN TV. So you like Russia 24, right?
Yes, of course.
Did I see Sasha was with us? Alexander, are you there?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so tell us about your TV viewing. Do you have a favorite channel?
Actually, I do not watch TV. Well, I mean, I almost do not watch TV. I might watch a program in the morning, but it's like a background for me when I have breakfast. But in the evening or any time else, I do not watch TV. I don't like it. I don't know why.
And so where do you get your news? I bet I can guess the answer, but tell me anyway.
The internet, of course.
The internet, of course.
Yeah. And
yeah, sometimes the news programs, but the internet is more often.
And do you have a favorite news source, a particular place you go on the internet to read for news?
No particular source.
Ah. Search. And Anton, tell us about your TV viewing. Are you a TV watcher?
No, not in the least. As I mentioned previously during our classes, I'm watching only somehow in the middle of the recent events. I'm also watching cartoons, yeah, and I'm also watching maybe something more or less educational, yeah. Like we have a marvelous channel, Моя планета, My Planet. Yeah, it's just great. It were their programs, and we also have Science 2.0, also nice.
So the closest thing to Russia 24 would probably be our CNN, the cable news network, and 24 hours a day, always broadcasting news. And in fact, now there are several CNN channels, CNN International, I think you can get in Russia, and that's the epitome, the peak, if you will, of continuous news coverage. It's always on. There's always coverage. There are always commentators. Moya Planeta's closest equivalent would probably be something called the Discovery Channel.
Or maybe National Geographic, yeah.
National Geographic too, yeah. They're both very close. And then we have, we have a battle going on in the United States between cable news and the networks. The three classic networks, of course, are ABC, CBS, and NBC, which come to us from being dominant TV networks in the 50s and 60s and 70s. But as we've pointed out, many people now have such a selection hundreds of channels, that the viewership of the dominant networks is falling. So we have watched Jon Stewart, right? Jon Stewart is on the comedy channel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of funny that 40% of Americans get their news from the comedy channel.
Well, that's convincing.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing is that now basically, unless these channels are restricted, we can watch Russian news here. You can see many of our TV channels live there.
No, there's a nice channel on English about Russian events, Russia Today.
Russia
Yeah.
Today. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's I haven't seen it for a long time. Oh, nice.
Here's my TV viewing for this morning.
Oh, splendid.
Actually, I was watching it over the weekend. So I watch Russia 24 too, Deanna. I'm in good company watching it with you.
Okay, thank you.
Professor Lero, go ahead.
Watching, excuse me, I just have one quick question. Are you watching it on your iPad?
Yes.
No, on your iPad.
Yeah, the picture is better there. You can watch it on the phone, but my eyes are too old for those tiny pictures.
So, but you don't watch it on your television?
No. This one I can only get there. It's actually just an app, and they broadcast it continuously.
So,
Go ahead.
just in case you don't know, you always need to consider the source of your news. If you're watching any news, you should know that most news has a bias. For example, my brother, who's very conservative, only watches Fox News. If it's on Fox News, he doesn't need to know about it. You're showing pictures of the, that must be MSNBC?
No, that's actually the live feed of News 24.
Ah, cool.
So that's sort of odd.
Yes. Is that an old water tower?
It looks like it. I'm guessing it's a fire story of some sort.
Oh yeah.
Yes, in fact, it's forest fires.
So, for example, I get a lot of my news from MSNBC, which is probably as progressive as Fox News.
Is regressive.
Yeah.
And when MSNBC would complain that a particular government policy or action is an intrusion on civil rights, Fox would report the same news as something fighting the war on terrorism, or protecting us from, or protecting our society.
Yes.
News is.
Antone notes that he likes euphemisms a lot. So, Joe, you were going somewhere, and I keep interrupting you.
Well, that's I think the point was made. You know, euphemisms. Maybe it's a euphemism, but it all depends on one's point of view. For example, you could conjugate the verb this way. You could say, I am firm, you are stubborn. He is a pighead. He is a pig-headed fool. And we're really saying the same thing. We're describing the same situation, but but with a sort of different strength and with emotional stuff. It depends on one's point of view. I am firm. You are stubborn. He is a pig-headed fool.
I'm intrigued by Anton's statement. Anton, what are some of your favorite euphemisms in English?
Well, I can't say anything particular about the English euphemisms, but well, I think they're just somehow universal, as there are the same rules and the same styles in our mass media, so it doesn't really matter. But the most common example of the euphemism in Russian is, for example, we call, oh, perhaps you heard about the CIA agent that was caught by FSB, yeah?
Yes, we heard about it.
That was an epic fail, actually, of the CIA. Yeah, and for example, the CIA agent we would call a spy, but our own spy we would call, for example, a scout, for example, I don't know, or a reckoner.
Agent.
We would call him, yeah, intelligence officer or explorer or something like that. Yeah. So it all depends from the point of view. Yes, actually, that's the point.
Well, I was going to say I've been waiting all week to hear about Professor Lero's limerick and pun experience. Several weeks ago.
That was wonderful. I'm last Saturday I went to the annual contest of the Austin Poetry Society, and there were poems entered in 20 different categories, something like that, and I was the judge for the limerick contest, and a limerick, Alexander, Anton, Diana, a limerick is a kind of amusing poem. It's kind of like a chastushka in Russian, and limericks follow a very carefully defined rhyme scheme. But one of the characteristics of limericks is that they're always amusing or sarcastic and very often ribald. They have kind of sexual connotations, and sometimes not even connotations. Sometimes they're quite crude. Anyway, the better ones are more subtle, I think. So the winning limerick. The winning limerick was one in which the writer, I should have written this down, but he writes, "All my poems deftly done are divine, from haiku to the odes they are fine. They're so craftily done, they should surely have won. Stick your prize where the sun doesn't shine." Stick your prize where the sun doesn't shine. And you know, one good hand deserves another, and rather than simply announcing my choice, I decided to announce it by way of a limerick, and I would first comment that when I received the poems, they were not accompanied by the writers' names, but there was a number assigned to each poem, and the number this writer's number was 1020. So I wrote, "Tonight we award the big money for words sassy and clever, and for words sassy and smarmy and funny. Though he disses the judge, I thought, hell, what the fudge. Give the big bucks to number 1020.
I love it.
Well, that was my experience this last week.
So you get to see them ahead of time.
Yes, I did. I got them in writing, and in fact, I think there were 20 entrants in this particular category, and it was the first year that they offered a prize in limericks. And I should mention too that the theme assigned for this poem was rejection.
Rejection.
Rejection. Rejection.
That might be too. We really need the text. We have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's lots of words and allusions. It's actually a very sophisticated genre.
Mm-hmm.
And in the poem that you have been working on translating, there was a reference to Nantucket.
Right.
Yes.
Nantucket.
Did you get that was a reference to a limerick? Did anyone get that?
Anyone? Let's see. Someone on the blog posted a couple limericks that were pretty graphic. But the word Nantucket, one of the things about limericks is their rhyme scheme, and the rhyme scheme, it's a 5-line poem, and the rhyme scheme is A-A-B-B-A. A-A-B-B-A. That is the first and the second and the fifth lines rhyme, and the third and the fourth. And in a limerick, in a typical limerick, for example, if you had the word Nantucket in the first line, then you need to find words or phrases that rhyme with Nantucket. And in English, there aren't too many. There aren't too many. Bucket. But the phrase that rhymes with Nantucket that everyone understands without even saying it explicitly is this one, which in polite company we don't use.
Although the world is getting less and less polite, I might add.
Well, I think you're right. And Professor Konstantin is probably rolling Professor Shestakov is probably rolling his eyeballs right now because he knows that I am no stranger. I am no stranger to that expression.
I had no idea.
Uh-huh.
When it's said in Polish, none of us understand, probably.
No doubt. No doubt. No.
So, does anyone have a favorite limerick in Russian? You said the word, but I didn't get it.
Chastushka. Chastushka.
Chastushka.
Chastushka.
Does anyone have a favorite chastushka that they could offer up? And then we might consider how to share it with the one person who doesn't get it. Not for $1 million. And is that the first line, or is that a comment on your unwillingness to share a chastushka? Comment, okay. So, is anyone else game?
Anton, do you have a chastushka? Dima, Diana?
Writing your own. Oh, how fun. As we have been playing with the idea of limericks, we thought it might be fun at another iteration of this course to have people write limericks in English, but we have run out of time to do that today.
Oh, there's Professor Smith. There's a wonderful one. How about one of the Anton or Dima? Would you read Professor Smith's limerick?
This is one you have to read aloud to catch the play a bit.
So, Dima, can you read it?
I don't think Dima has a microphone. Shall we try Alexander?
You want me to read this one?
Try Nantucket there in the chat.
Huh?
It's the limerick that Professor Smith put in the chat.
Yeah, I see. There once was a man from Nantucket who kept all his cash in a bucket, but his daughter named Nan ran away with the man, and as for the bucket, Nantucket.
It's good.
No one took it.
Or Nan took it.
Yeah, maybe.
That's probably the only clean version of a Nantucket limerick. They tend not to be very polite.
And Professor Smith's use of clean there means not vulgar. It's not a common usage of clean that language students are likely to have learned.
You might say to your child, Pete, clean up your language.
Yeah, good.
Clean up your language. Clean up your language. Pete, clean up your language. Professor Smith said, there was a Blinn tornado in Blinn, Oklahoma, and Blinn.
And is that a common word?
Blinn? Oh yeah, that Blinn is
food. Is it like blini?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Pancake. Just a little filler.
And of course, for me, with my French background, it always comes out as crêpe.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that word, Americans love to distort.
Crepe.
Or crap.
Crêpe.
And I'm sorry, I put an extra letter on the end. Crap is a word for excrement.
Poo-poo. Caca.
Now we've got Professor Lero started. Well, before we leave our news theme, what's the big story in Russia this season? Diana, you said you actually watched News 24. What's the big story that all Russians are following today? Oh, are you there, Diana?
Yes. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, what's the big news story in Russia today? So in the United States, the big news story is the tornado in Oklahoma. What would be a big news story in Russia today?
Unfortunately, I have no time to watch the news today. And
or this week? Or this week?
Or this week, for example, I can say that the big news of Russian is the death of our producer Balabanov.
Balabanov, yeah.
Who make such films as Brat 2, Жмурки, and another great films, and he was ill and for many years, and he was only 54 years, so he dead on Friday. No, right.
Yeah.
So it's a very
tragic. Sometimes we use the word tragic.
It's very tragic news for me.
Yes, we saw a little bit of that news here in the United States, but Americans don't know who Balabanov is, of course, for the most part. Well, as we are coming to the end of the semester, we asked you to think about how your knowledge of culture and how your knowledge of language had grown these past few months. So we've been meeting now for almost 4.5 months. We've covered a lot of cultural themes. You've had a lot of chance to listen, to read, to write, to speak. And we asked you all to reflect a little bit and think about how your knowledge of language and culture had improved or grown. Dima, are you with us? Can we hear you?
Yes, hello. I think that.
There you are. We can hear you.
I made my microphone.
Tell us a little bit about your semester. What part of your language and culture or parts do you feel have really improved?
I don't know was it improved or not, but it was very interesting for me in this semester to receive new knowledge, and especially this course was very interesting, but I couldn't be on all classes. It's not very good, I think, but I will try in the next time to to participate in all meetings. So sometimes it's difficult to discuss all topics because if you don't participate in all meetings.
And it's also very difficult oftentimes to see yourself getting better. We can see the difference. So we think back to our first meeting in January, and you were a very quiet group. That's hard to believe. And now you're not. You jump in, you listen, you communicate, as you just said, Dima. But sometimes it appears very slow to the learner. But I will tell you, we can definitely see some progress.
Thank you.
Anton, tell us about your semester and progress.
Well, to begin with, I picked up some new nice idioms that I'm going to use, like spring chicken, yeah, like that. Yeah. What else? I got some new details about how do you live there in America, and that was quite interesting, and I'm using, and I'd like to thank you for that. As this information, I know it sounds weird, but no one cares about information like that because not much people communicate between the nations. Separate people, they're not really communicating between each other, especially like, I don't know, simple people or ordinary people. I mean, not simple, of course. Yeah. And what else? I'm not sure about the progress, actually, because in my opinion, I'm making my main progress in the university, as I'm going to be an interpreter, but I may say so about my colleagues who are lawyers, and they're putting a great effort to speak English in here, and speaking quite fluently, in my opinion, although they need to improve their pronunciation, and that's my prime recommendation, and that's it, I guess.
And that's another area where we can see everybody getting a little bit better because you've had a chance to listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And listening drives pronunciation, and pronunciation is hard work to change and improve. But I think we can also see that progress over the semester as well in all of you. Sasha, tell us a little bit about your semester.
Okay, I think that this course was very interesting, and first of all, it helped me in the university, especially when we were talking about the elections in the USA, and it helped me during my class of the constitutional law. So, thank you very much. I got a good mark. So, I think that my English improved only a bit, and it's because primarily of that I do not have many people to speak English with, and it's a big problem for me, I think. I think I need to find someone to speak, because I miss English very much if I get it. So, I don't know what to add.
And that's a very good point. So you've had good practice over the semester, right?
Yeah, of course.
And how will you keep practicing in the summer? Do you have any good plans to watch television or read newspapers in English this summer?
This is a problem. I think I'll try to watch more films and watch live streams in English. Maybe I'll find someone to talk with in Skype or by any other means. Actually, I'm typing in English more than speaking.
Okay. And that's all good practice. And yeah, so finding a place that you can practice and practice regularly and practice every day, you're exactly right, is so important.
And I mean practice with native speakers, because it's a big difference.
Yeah. Diana, tell us about your semester.
You joined us late, but you certainly picked up the pace.
As for me, unfortunately, I did not so long taken part in the courses. Only 5 classes, but when I started the course, my explanations were practice English with native speakers, effort to make mistakes and not be afraid of it, because I have a fear of making mistakes in speech and in pronunciation, but I understand that the mistakes will not be corrected if I keep silent. This course was very useful to me, and I would like to say you thank you for your help, and thank you for your advices, and I would like to take a part in the next semester, in the next courses, and I think we will meet again.
Good. That would be great.
Thank you.
So, Diana, tell me, would you recommend this course to another person wanting to learn about American language and culture? And if so, what would you tell them about this course?
Of course, I will recommend these courses because it can help the people to improve the knowledge of language, and it is the practice English with native speakers. So it is very important for people who want to know English. So that is all.
And Alexander, the thing that you do about fearing to make mistakes is dare yourself to talk. Feel the fear and do it anyway. I think that you will find that people like you, Americans, are very pleased when you try to speak English. And that's maybe an important takeaway for any person learning a language other than their cradle tongue, is that people like it when you try to speak their language. And I know that it's difficult. The main thing is, and this is a really basic thing, what is the purpose of language? And for me, the answer is communication. Yeah, and so this helped me when I finally got to this point of knowing that the reason we want to talk is so we can share our ideas with other people. Then it's no longer about making mistakes. We have language as expression, versus language as grammar. And unfortunately, in many, particularly beginning language class, language isn't about expression, it's about doing the grammar right. And if you focus on expressing your ideas and asking questions, then the concern about making mistakes goes away. And Alexander, I relate to this, this fear that you had expressed about making mistakes, because I think I was the kind of student that you seem to be. Do everything right, and then you'll shine. And that's okay, but and isn't that accurate? I'm talking about me, but I think that it sounds like you might be there too. Is that correct? What do you think, Alexander?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I had some problems with the sound. Can you repeat, please?
Drat! They were golden words, too. So,
it's okay, technical problems are okay for me, so never mind.
Yes. Okay, so basically, problems should be okay for you. The reason that we talk to other people is to communicate. And if you're in particularly a lower level language learning class, you tend to focus on the grammar. And then when you don't talk about the content, when you don't really have anything you want to communicate, you get perfecting the grammar, making sure that the verbs agree and the word order is right and all those sorts of things, and you get lost in the grammar. This is the kind of student that I was when I first started language studies. But then when it hit me that I actually had native speakers to talk to, then it was more about language as expression. And I wanted to talk to them so much that I forgot about making mistakes. The frustrations that I felt were because I didn't know how to say things. And I'm guessing that you're this kind of student, that you want to do everything right. Is that correct, Alexander?
Yeah, I think it is.
One thing that helps the fear is just to dare yourself to speak and to ask questions. Because if you focus on communicating content, then you're less concerned about making mistakes.
And as Professor Marston has said, native speakers tend to be very tolerant, even on the street, when you go and speak to them, as opposed to in a classroom. And although there are some cultures that are famous for perhaps not being tolerant, we always make fun of the French. Even the French, when you attempt to speak French, put you in a different class. You have tried. You have made a certain act of respect about their language and culture. And the Dutch. That's very interesting, because the Dutch are so international that you would think they would be particularly tolerant.
Well, having been a lifelong speaker of French, it is my experience that Americans who travel to France have the most difficulty if they speak to people whose livelihood depends on their knowing English. So if you talk to tourist guides, people in museums, and even people in stores, in a sense, you threaten their livelihood if you can communicate in their language. Take the people who are just beginning learners and switch to English. Look at me, I can speak English. So you don't have to worry about your poor, pitiful, wrong attempts to speak French. And I had to study this quite a bit, because this is not an experience that I have ever had in France, partly because by the time I went to France, I was pretty fluent. And I didn't talk to tourist guides.
Mm-hmm.
But I have had students who had this experience of the French sneering at their French and speaking English. But it's all about wanting to, being proud of speaking English, and also wanting to be tolerant. The Spanish, in my experience, are extremely tolerant. And my experience with Chinese is I completely bewilder people when I try to speak Chinese. I have a colleague, an American colleague, who went to China with just a little bit of Chinese, and he told a taxi driver something in Chinese, and the taxi driver was very upset by what he said. My friend said, "I am a traitor to my country." That isn't what he intended to say, but that's what the taxi driver understood. Which are very difficult for non-Chinese speakers. Yes, the phonetics are amazing.
Anton, you had mentioned you're studying to be an interpreter. Are there situations or themes that are very hard for you still, and you think, oh no, not this topic? Or situations that are particularly difficult for you as a speaker of English or learner of English?
Well, as a speaker of English, I guess I didn't have such situation yet. I had pleasure moments where I could show that I know English. For example, in the previous August, I was riding on the bus back at home, and I heard suddenly in English in Russian bus. Oh my God, in Omsk! Yeah, and these were the Americans. They were from New York, and they came to support their relative. One of their son played hockey in Omsk in the junior league, and so they were traveling like that from Czech Republic. Yeah, and I put a little effort as it was a little tact to just say hi guys, and yet I said, oh, I wouldn't forget myself if I wouldn't ask, but where are you guys from? Yeah, and I remember they were glad about my pronunciation. Wow, that was quite a compliment for me. I wasn't a student yet. Yeah, so that was quite a occasional acquaintanceship. Yeah.
And is there a topic maybe that you still struggle with? I will tell you that many of us as language learners can talk about the concrete pretty easily, right? We can talk about our city and our school and our friends and our family. But the minute the topic becomes very abstract, right, Anton, tell me your political philosophy. It gets harder, doesn't it?
Not really, actually. I can easily think about abstract. I'm usually constructing some links with what I know, and that's why I have something to say in most cases.
And I think that speaks very well for you as a future interpreter. Are there cultural themes that you think, boy, I don't know about?
Well, the most important skill of the interpreter is to say something in the necessary moment. Yeah, just say something. And if you fail, if you make a mistake somewhere, you can just after when you're finished, you can come at home and crash your head against the wall because you're so dumb. But not while you are working. Yes.
Ah, the code of the interpreter.
The code of the
something
interpreter.
like that.
Say something, even if it's not an interpretation.
So maybe it's good you can always talk about the weather now, right, in English?
Yeah, I bet so.
There was one time a number of years ago, a Russian teacher was working here in Austin, and he worked with me when I was teaching in high school under an exchange program, Nikolai. And we were good friends. I was his host here, and one day he decided he wanted to buy a new pair of tennis shoes. So we went to the shoe store, and he looked at all the shoes, and you know, he tried out several, and he didn't like the color of some, and maybe the price was or the materials were different. So we had this long conversation. He finally made his selection, and he said, would you pay for these for me? So I took the shoes and the money, and I went to the cash register, and I said to the clerk, we'd like to buy these. So the clerk filled out his paperwork, and the clerk looked up at me and said, what language were you guys speaking? And I said, well, we were speaking in Russian. He said, wow, that's really something. That's a hard language. And he said, you know what? Your English is pretty good. You speak almost without an accent.
Marvelous.
Yes, I had a similar experience when I was living in Spain. I often went to a big park in Madrid with my small daughter, and one day at the entrance to the park, there were some people who some Americans who were asking for directions. So, you know, I gave them the directions, and they were so thrilled. It's so good. And I didn't tell them why. Tell them I was an American. I just said, oh, thank you.
Diana, tell us what you're going to do this summer to practice English. What are you hoping to do going forward to keep practicing?
I planned to read the interesting book which called The Phantom of the Opera.
Ah.
So I would like to read it and try my and train my my skills of translation and so on. So unfortunately, I have no an opportunity to talk with the native speakers, but I will to read and watch the films in English, and it will my summer training.
Now, can you watch CNN live in Russia on the internet?
Yes, of course, I can.
Since you like Russia 24, that may also be a good source of practice if you like to watch CNN. If you ask Americans, some like CNN. For example, I will watch CNN, but my wife does not watch it. She does not like it. She gets bored after a while. But it's always a good source of practice and news. Although they do speak very quickly, it's like me watching Russia 24. Maybe I'll get just a theme or an idea or a topic. And it's always very good listening practice as well.
My question is, and I don't know, and I'd really like to know, in Russia, do you have access to audible.com? This is a piece of, it's now owned by Amazon.com, and I like it because you can buy recordings. And, you know, Alexander, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think audiobooks are for the weak. I use them all the time. And, you know, I'm not weak. And I also think it's really useful when I'm reading another language if I can get a recording so that I can make that connection between how it sounds and how it looks. So you have to to get the biggest bang for your buck, as you would say, as I would say, you have to use both the written word and the spoken word together. So reading along while you listen is not something to disparage. It's really a great language learning practice, and you have to read actively. Anytime you can make that sight and sound connection, you will learn faster. So don't sneer at it.
That's why they have captioning on television and captioning on movies and subtitles in the language of the film, because sometimes it increases understanding to see the written word as you hear the word.
And the one thing, you can watch a film with subtitles, and that is useful, but subtitles are different than a transcript. For me, it's very difficult to watch a film with subtitles because I'm always noticing the things where they are not faithful, or they didn't get it. And so I think it's at a certain level for gross meaning, that's okay. But most of the films that are available to us in this country are dubbed. That's because Americans are not famous as linguists. And Anton, you said that you have trouble thinking about something else during the reading. So if you're going to do this, you have to be focused, and you have to look at the words into the words. And if you need be, follow along with your finger underneath the text.
And there's actually a difference between captions and subtitles. So captions, as Professor Marston said, are the same language as the speaker. So one of the things that we think is great practice is to watch English language television and see English words down at the bottom. And there are lots of ways you can do that. And Hulu.com in particular is a place that frequently shares videos with subtitles. That is where we're saying it would be good practice for language, or with captions. Subtitles cross languages, so the film is in Russian and the subtitles are in English. That probably has less value, but it's good. But if you can find English language material that's captioned in English, it will help you quite a bit.
And usually closed caption materials are marked CC, and they're really for native speakers who are deaf, I believe. But you're the expert on this, Pete. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, they actually started for back in the early 60s and 70s and 80s for individuals who were hard of hearing, who were deaf. And then we found out that almost always more people began to use them, speakers of English or learners of English began to use them. So these would be captions. And so, say once again, caption is when something is spoken on the screen and captioned in the same language. And I'll put an example up here on the screen in a minute as soon as I can get one. So if you're watching one of these English language television networks this summer and can find one that has captioning, those are particularly useful because, as I said, they tend to speak very quickly for television delivery, and so you can use the help of the support when it you can literally read on the screen what is being said on the screen. And most American TVs now have closed captioning so that you click a button on the remote control and you can see the words scrolling on the bottom of the screen. which lets you read along. Sometimes we do that at my house when there's a British drama on, because the audio on some British dramas is just so bad, we can't always understand what they're saying, and so we try and turn the captions on to read along.
Yeah,
so I
for
put an
me,
example of closed captioning up under the heading called CC Example.
Uh-huh.
And so the speaker on the screen would be speaking in English, and the words scroll across in English. Now, I know it's difficult to watch Hulu in Russia, but there are ways, and Professor Shestakov can talk about some of that software, but many of the videos that Hulu.com shows let you open up the captions and read along.
so how do Russians watch Hulu?
They actually have to install a VPN piece of software. Hulu will not broadcast to Russia, but you can fool it and not let it know that you're in Russia.
I think we put out that link once this semester, but I don't know for sure.
And there are other sources of news and so on that are closed captions as well. I will, Voice of America does some caption news. I'll put a link here in a second.
So another question that I have is how, if you were to change something about the way this course is offered, what would you want to change? You're open to suggestions, or what content, what are you curious about that we never talk about? This is something that would be very useful for us to know, and we can't know it if you say nothing. Anton, you have put a cryptic message up. Movie industry. Ah, Russian history. Ah, interesting. What about you, Diana? What would you like to hear more of that you haven't heard yet? We are really pretty open to things that we might talk about, as you can tell when I put pictures of my cat rolling on the dirt. Let's see if I can get it for you. I write a blog, and Professor Lero also writes a blog. And if you're looking for something to read, I could recommend either one of those. Professor Lero, would you care to share your...
My address is Joseph Lero, wordpress.com, and Professor Marston's is, and I should know this,
I'm working on getting it there. It's lilyroseblogs.wordpress.com. And I try to write about things, whatever occurs to me. And it's sometimes small things. You will see that picture of my cat rolling in the dirt. I wrote a piece about that.
Mm-hmm.
And about the house, the new house that they're building across the street.
And the gasoline prices.
Gasoline prices.
Oh, yeah. So, and there's some treasures in my house that I've written about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, if you miss me, go and look at my blog, because
it's the next best thing to being there.
Yes, it flows right through my brain. And you can also leave comments. And if you do that, I will be happy to respond. Most people don't comment, but since I do this mainly for my own amusement and for the amusement of my daughter and grandchildren, it doesn't bother me a bit. I do it because I like to. But Professor Lero has a blog that I am always excited about. When you post,
sometimes I write about food and about things I enjoy cooking, and sometimes I write about my travels or about my garden. And my next blog, my next thread will be about the birds that I see as I sit here at my desk, and I have been taking photographs of them and observing their behavior. I have a pair of binoculars right here at my desk, and I can look right out my window and watch them. And
see, I think Joe is a spy. We need to watch out for him now.
And I understand that's a problem when you go to Russia anyway. Didn't you tell us, Professor Lero?
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
He does not take the binoculars to Russia.
I do not take the binoculars to Russia, but I do take my wristwatch. Speak into the wristwatch, please.
Or the shoe phone.
Speak into the shoe phone. Well.
And so you
thank
have
you
a
all.
question.
We are almost out of time.
Okay.
I'm not an ornithologist, Anton. I just feed the birds and derive much pleasure from watching them and their behavior.
Well, thank you all for such a wonderful semester. We have learned and quite a bit from you as well, and we were delighted that several of you noted you hope to be with us in the fall. We're looking forward to seeing you all again, and we'll be working on fresh topics and ideas and approaches all throughout the summer as well.
Best of luck to all of you.
So we wish everybody a good summer, and we hope to see you in the fall.
And I will add that I put my Gmail address in the chat. If you want to write to me, I will try to get back to you. But in the meantime, I look forward to hearing from you again and seeing your smiling faces. This has truly been fun.
Do свидания. До новых встреч.
So, talk to you all soon, and have a good summer.
Have a nice holiday.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, see you all at 11.
All right, we'll be back.
I'll be back as well. See you then.